One of my favorite questions these days about artificial intelligence is whether or not it's going to turn our brains to mush. The answer really depends on who you ask or what you're paying attention to. So there are certainly sources out there, we've seen them in the media, who say that if we rely on artificial intelligence, we will stop thinking. Imagine. Sometimes we wish we would stop thinking because our brains are overactive. So we won't stop thinking, but the nature of our thinking might change. There are other people out there who are suggesting that if we use AI well, then we might actually expand our cognitive thinking capacity. And that is certainly what Jerry and I are experiencing as we're working with artificial intelligence in our work. It can be helpful to know a little bit about the purpose of the brain and how it works. So, the primary purpose of our brain is to keep us safe. And one of the ways that the brain can do that is by conserving energy. When you take a course, when you're learning something new, when you're thinking a lot, it can actually be tiring. And we may find ourselves hungry and we think all I've been doing is sitting here all day long and yet I'm starving. It's because the brain uses a lot of energy when it's thinking and when it's learning something new. So when we slow down our thinking, the brain conserves energy. So if we're using artificial intelligence as a crutch and not thinking a whole lot about what we're putting in or what we're getting out, then we may well train the brain to conserve energy and to shut down and lose some of its capacity. The good news is there's such a thing as neuroplasticity and neuropathways. So, neuroplasticity means that our brains always have the capacity to grow and to learn. And neuropathways is the way that information travels. So, every time that we're learning something new, we're creating new neural pathways in our brains. The more we reinforce a neural pathway, the stronger it gets and the faster information flows. So, the opportunity that we have when we're using artificial intelligence is to apply critical thinking skills to what we're doing, which means that we will then make better use out of artificial intelligence and also out of our brains. Interestingly, also related to this is there is a thing called sycophancy, which means that artificial intelligence will agree with our perspectives 49% more often than a human would. And this becomes really important because if our views and our perspectives are only ever being agreed with, then we start to believe it's true. Like you think about when you put a query into a chat bot and the chat bot comes back and says, that's a very thoughtful question. It's giving you positive reinforcement for your own thinking, and that might feel lovely, but is it really that helpful? One of the reasons that Jerry and I like working with neuroscience and also behavioral science is because it gives us so much more insight into human dynamics and into intergroup or interpersonal dynamics, and is extraordinarily helpful in the work that we do with both worldview intelligence and a healthy workplace culture. So here are some ways that you can think about how you're using AI while also enhancing your critical thinking abilities. So the first question is, what are the instructions that you're giving AI? So whatever the task is that you want the artificial intelligence to do, you want to think pretty comprehensively about what the output is that you're looking for. So Jerry and I are often looking for draft reports from conversations that we've had or other research that we've done, and we will ask the AI to create a summary report using without using names, but attributing quotes to roles of people who we talk to, and identify the themes and the patterns that were apparent in the report and any recommendations that are obvious as a result of what the AI has been scanning through. We might ask it, this is another part of this, to play a certain role as it's writing the report. So we might ask it to write in a casual style or in a more business style. It could be when you're using AI, you want to think about asking it to identify gaps or other questions or inconsistencies in the information that you have so that you're training it to also offer a little bit of a critical thinking lens to the work that you're doing. And the third aspect of this becomes, so what do you do with the output of the AI, if, or whatever the AI has given you? If you simply copy and paste that into a document and present that as your work, first of all, you're not thinking very critically about it. It's not a good idea. And people know, like when they, because AI has tells. So when they read the report. So when Jerry and I are drafting reports, as an example, then we have to go through that report and really think about, does it line up with what we heard when we were talking to people or doing the research that we were doing? And does it reflect our voice in all of this? And do the recommendations make sense? Is there anything missing from our perspective? So it enables us to think more broadly about the work that we're doing, and we get to it faster. So we could create a report in maybe a few days or a week that previously might have taken a month to do. By the time we drafted it, identified all the themes, drafted the report, went through it several different times. So it's time saving, but it's also inviting us to think differently. We're also thinking differently about the different templates and models that we have that people can work with, and how we automate those things so that it goes through, so it does, it works faster for us. And then finally, I would say that one of the things that we want to do is we train AI to challenge our own thinking, is that it invites us to think about conflict and differences of opinion differently, and maybe invites us more into this curiosity instead of defensiveness. And if we can practice that with whatever AI is going to throw at us, we can bring that skill into our human conversations and our meetings and our brainstorming sessions and our critical thinking sessions in the same way. So we could actually use AI to help us think about how we engage conflict, differences of opinion, different ideas in a better, healthier, more constructive way. And that is the essence of the work that Jerry and I do with Worldview Intelligence, where it is an invitation into exploratory conversations, into building bridges, into bringing all of the differing perspectives together so that we're actually making better decisions. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about whether you think AI is turning our brains to mush, or whether you're noticing that you're actually expanding not just your capacity to work differently, but to think differently. Let me know. Drop your thoughts in the comments.